Welcome back, HC Nation. Zach Edwards here with another episode of the Adventure Box Podcast. That's right, we come to you every week with 4 episodes. 2 that are on ancient civilizations, 2 that are from the ancient American history, early American history. So Mondays and Wednesdays we talk about early American history. Tuesdays and Thursday we talk about ancient civilization. Right now we're on Rome. Now, this is all brought to you by Historical Conquest. It's a great game to learn history and just have fun. You don't need to know anything about history to play it. The gameplay is much like the game of Risk, while it looks like the game of like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, those kind of games. But where every character, every card that's in the game is actually a historical person. Now, I'm going to put that to the side because today we're going to be talking about Rome. Ancient Rome. We've been talking about this for the last 2 weeks. We have about another week after this, but we're going to be talking about today one of the most important people in all of Roman history, and that is who? Caesar Augustus. Now, remember, Julius Caesar, it was Julius and then Caesar. This one, Caesar, being his position, like Emperor Augustus. So, this is the start, also, of one other time. It's called the Pax Romana. Romana. Sorry about that. As with all, I always give you a summary of what we're going to be learning about, and then we'll go into the actual details. First off, how did Octavian, now remember, Octavian was the adopted son of Julius Caesar. Now, Octavian was basically, he grew up going to become Caesar. Julius Caesar wanted him to become the ruler of Rome when Julius went away. Now, at one point, it's called the Ides of March, which is basically when Julius Caesar was assassinated, was killed by those in the Senate. Brutus, a few others, they all killed him and then went on the run because Octavian wanted vengeance. Wanted vengeance for his adopted father who had just been killed. Now, with this vengeance, he didn't just go after them as a single person. He needed to have support. So his support was just like Julius Caesar. Remember, Julius Caesar had the first triumvirate. The first triumvirate was where you had Julius Caesar, you had Pompey, and you had Crassus. These are 3 people. Now, it was not official. It was under the table, an agreement between the 3. 2 generals, 1 Julius Caesar. Now remember, Julius Caesar did not have much power before he took over with the first triumvirate. He had popularity. He was one of the ancient influencers. And he went into major debt to get this influence because he knew if he got influence, he would be able to rule the country, rule the civilization of Rome. So he put out all this money and he got friends, influence, and such. When Julius Caesar passed away, Octavian basically did the same thing, though without having to spend a ton of money on getting popularity. He already had it because he was the son of Julius Caesar, but he brought together 2 other people, not Augustus, 2 other people, which would be Mark Antony and Lepidus. And we're going to go, we went over to that last week. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, go back to last week and learn all about it. So we're going to be talking about after the second triumvirate. Mark Antony is dead, Lepidus is exiled. Octavian takes on the title of Caesar Augustus, the first Roman emperor of the whole civilization. But here's an interesting thing. Him taking over actually created another change. And this is something called the Pax Romana. So today we're going to be talking about how he basically laid the foundation of 2 centuries of basically peace and prosperity inside of Rome. Now, not full peace. It was more of an illusion of peace. There were other things that were coming up, that were happening. People were not happy with each other. But he also introduced, Caesar Augustus, different bold reforms and also careful leadership. So he set it up so that in the future, he'd be set for life, even when he's dead. His reign would go on. And I think I've told you this before, a lot of times when a leader dies, the new leader comes in and changes all the history. It's how they gain control over people. You change the history, you change the religion, you have control over the people. And you burn the writings to make your own writings. It's almost like, if you remember Hitler, he was trying to get rid of all the books. Yes, because he wanted to write his own history. Not a good thing if you see your people trying to burn books or such. So let's begin by the moment of chaos, the death of Caesar. I'm going to go, I've already gone over this a little bit, but I want to get a little bit more information on here. We'll do this really fast because we just did this last week. But in 44 BC, Julius Caesar was assassinated. And this basically unleashed another round of civil war. The civilization had been under civil war for the last 100 years. And this is when Octavian comes in. At the time, he's only 18 years old. He gets support from Mark Antony, Lepidus. Now, Mark Antony, general, he was the one that actually helped Herod take over Jerusalem after Pompey had already done it, and then they lost Jerusalem. So Mark Antony gets it back, and this is before 0 AD. And then you also have Lepidus, who is a very wealthy person. So he has all this money, and let's see, Mark Antony had the power, Lepidus had the money, and Octavian had the popularity. So together they defeated Caesar's assassins, Brutus and Cassius, at the Battle of Philippi in 42 BC. Now, this brought peace, but then this brought a lot of other things. So Mark Antony and Cleopatra have this love relationship. Now, Cleopatra, if you remember, was actually the wife, I don't know if they were officially married, but one of the wives of Julius Caesar, and had a child by him. And she went up to Rome, and when he was assassinated, she vamoosed as fast as possible back down to Egypt. Now, Egypt had this power struggle. When Mark Antony went down there, when Julius Caesar went down there, Cleopatra was delivered to him in a rug. She hid in a rug so no one would know she was there, because she had lost power in Egypt to another relative. And she was able to get it back with Caesar's help. Now, come Mark Antony, she's in power. She has all this money. Mark Antony needs money for an army to take on Jerusalem and put Herod back in place. And so they create this union between the two. Well, okay, they start getting popular, especially in Rome. And what happens to Octavius? Octavian? He does not like this. He does not like that they're being more popular than he is. Remember, he's all about the popularity. So, in 31 BC, so this is what, 11 years after they defeated the assassins of Julius Caesar, their forces clash with Rome, with Octavian's forces on the water in the Battle of Actium. It's a naval battle off the coast of Greece. Now, Octavian's navy, under Agrippa, decisively defeats Antony and Cleopatra. They're both there. So, Cleopatra turns tail and runs with her fleet, with her part of the fleet. Now, at the same time, Mark Antony sees that. He's like, I can't fight him with only half the fleet, because, again, a lot of the money was coming from Cleopatra. She took the rest of her fleet that was not destroyed at the time and goes back down to Egypt. So he turns around and heads back. He's in love with her. I think at this point he's married to her, has kids with her. So they get back down to Egypt, totally with no credibility whatsoever to their name anymore. So because of this, no credibility to their name, they have to give up. They know that Octavian is heading down. Well, Mark Antony gets this message that Cleopatra is dead. So he falls on his own sword. Cleopatra comes in and, oh, he just killed himself for me. What do I do? Well, she didn't do the same thing. Actually, Octavian makes it down there. And a little bit later, after knowing that she would be subservient to him, she did not like that anymore. She basically did the same thing, but without a sword. It was an asp. It was a poisonous snake that was allowed to bite her. Fast forward just a tiny bit, 27 BC, Octavian returns the power to the Senate. Now, this is like a shadow Senate, because who's really in control? Now, they thought they were going to be, but he was planning to basically take it over. So he put more senators in the Senate, and he took on the name of Augustus, which is translated the revered one. So though he avoided the title or the word king or dictator, which is a normal title for those in Rome, Augustus held supreme authority over the military, the treasury, and the religion. Wait. Take over their history, take over their money, and you get to write their history. Yes, so he became Principus, yes, or first citizen, beginning what we now call the Principate. The Principate was the early Roman Empire. So the Republic was now officially dead. Even though the Senate was there, it was officially dead because Augustus gave Rome basically something it had not seen in decades, which was stability. And as we've already talked about, the Senate was completely out of control. Back when they killed Caesar, before they killed Caesar, there had been 100 years worth of civil wars during this time. So he is now in power. He is in ultimate power. Even though he doesn't want the title of dictator, he is a dictator. He has full power. Military, treasury, religion. There's not much after that. There's no commerce, that's treasury. There's no fighting, oh, that's military. There's no enforcement, that's military. He takes over everything, though he says, we have the Senate, and the Senate makes the decisions. Though unhandedly, he is the one in full control of the Senate. But what does this bring? This brings on the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. It was roughly 200 years, a 200-year period of relative stability across the Roman Empire. Not just in Italy, but everything from Spain to Jerusalem, Egypt, and over to, through Africa. So, all of the empire, the whole Mediterranean was encircled by Rome, and they controlled that. And all the seafarer, that was all controlled by Rome. So everything is basically controlled by the known world, mostly, is controlled by Rome, controlled by Caesar Augustus. So it was not completely free of war and unrest, though. I mentioned this before. There were still, there were no major internal civil wars. Borders were mostly secure, and trade flourished during this time. Cities grew, the Roman law reached its golden age. But again, there were still small civil uprisings. There were still small border crossings. So, let's look at how Augustus basically made this all possible. It was through his what? His government and administrative reforms. So, Augustus reorganized the government to work effectively and efficiently under his control while preserving the republican image. Again, he did not say he was a dictator. He did not want to be called king. He wanted to be called, Principus? The first citizen? He wanted to be called Augustus, the revered one. I mean, I'm sorry. This is full transparency. He might be trying to put an illusion on, but that was fully transparent to like everyone back there. No, of course, I wasn't back there, so I can't exactly say that's 100% true. But I can't see his people not seeing that, except, again, if you change the history, change the religion. Those are the two things. But because of these reforms, he reduced the size of the Senate. He removed the corruption and unqualified members. But then he added to it those that were not corrupt and those that were qualified. Now remember, the Senate was supposed to be brought in by the people. He's the one that now fully controls the Senate. So who controls the Senate? Not the people. The Caesar does. The Augustus. The revered one. So he created a professional civil service as well, staffed by trained administrators and freemen. Okay, this is interesting. So he had an administration full of bureaucrats. At the same time, if you cross Caesar, he just get rid of you. So local cities and provinces were given governors and tax collectors who answered directly to who? Rome. Again, this is the same time when Jerusalem is put under a census of finding who's there and taxing them. Have we heard that before? I mean, we just passed Easter, and the first part of that story is called the Nativity, when the people were called out for a census and taxation. Interesting. How that all works. History. It's great. Okay. He also established the Praetorian Guard. It's an elite force that basically protected the emperor and enforced loyalty. Not laws, loyalty. So, sounds a little bit like Hitler. Just saying. Something like that. Okay, so in short, he built a centralized professional state that could function without constant bloodshed. So for that, you can actually say thank you. But having a dictator of everything, not so good. So, let's talk about the legal and social reforms. Augustus was also a moral reformer. Moral reformer. Just think of that. Okay. He passed laws to encourage marriage and childbirth among the Roman elite. Nice. Okay. They wanted to grow their population. Okay. He penalized adultery and childlessness. Whoa, wait a second. What? Okay. Penalized adultery. Cheating on a spouse. That's not a good thing. But childlessness? Basically, he wanted to restore the traditions of Roman values. Now, I don't know exactly what the rules around that were. There were probably a lot of rules around that. Look it up. But his family, however, struggled to meet these own standards. That's right, that's the hard thing. His own daughter, Julia, was exiled for what? Scandalous behavior. Wow. I mean, seriously, like half our civilization today, half the United States would be pushed out. Not half. That's not true. That is way over. 10%. Half of the people you see on social media would be exiled. Maybe 10% of our society. 90%, probably not. Scandalous behavior. 10%, maybe not even that. Maybe it is less, but it looks like it because of social, right? Because of social media, because of TV. Yeah. So in law, Augustus helped to codify a more uniform legal system, which basically provided the foundation for Roman law across the empire. This also changed the economics. There was economic reform and infrastructure. So he believed in peace, and it required prosperity in order to have peace. So he reformed the tax system, creating a census. Oh, wait a second, census. A direct taxation in his provinces. Greece, Jerusalem, Syria, Turkey, down in Egypt, parts of Africa. Oh yeah, all over the place. But what it did is it allowed for them to pay for all the things that they wanted to do. Infrastructure. Sounds like right now. Well, not right now. Sounds like 2 years ago. Biden wanted to increase our infrastructure, and so he wanted to tax us more to do it. Interesting. It's interesting how history plays itself over and over again. And I'm not saying that infrastructure is bad at all. Biden, what he was doing, I'm not saying that was bad. I just think it was interesting that they increased taxes to do their own infrastructure projects. Whatever they choose, that's what's going to be built. If they don't like it, they're not going to build it. And Augustus basically did the same thing. He paid soldiers a regular salary, which was good because they hadn't been doing this. In the past, remember, the soldiers were the ones that actually were farmers. Farmers were able to join the army. And then, when they got back from war, the wealthy elites bought their land up. So when Augustus came in, he did some land reforms. Not some reforms in the sense that the soldiers were given a regular salary and provided land and pensions. He reduced the unrest and increased the loyalty. What did the people want? They wanted land. They wanted money to survive. The poor were so many people. There was so much poor in Rome during the first triumvirate, during the civil wars, because the Senate, even though it was supposed to be the speakers of the people, were helping pad the pockets of the wealthy elite. So there's like bad things about Caesar Augustus, and there's actually some good things about Caesar Augustus. Those things that the Gracchus brothers tried to do, the reforms for land and such, and then they were killed about it from the Senate, killed by the Senate. I mean, Caesar was able to do it because he took over full control, and he wanted the popularity, because remember, he was all about popularity. But okay, so he took a lot of investments into public works, aqueducts, roads, bridges, temples, forums, all these different things. His line was, "I found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble." Remember that. That's what he was about. His building projects employed thousands and reshaped the city of Rome across the empire with roads and harbors and trading areas and aqueducts that brought water into Rome, all these different things. The trade routes reached from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to India. He had the largest empire in the world in all of history. Now let's talk about the peace of the Pax Romana. Okay. And some things I'm going to be going over again next time, because on Wednesday I'm going to be going over the peace, prosperity, and some of the things that actually happened in there, pushing Augustus a little bit to the side. Sorry, Caesar, you're out of here. We'll talk about you a little bit, but we're going to focus on the actual Pax Romana on Wednesday. So peace under Augustus didn't mean democracy. It was not like we have in the United States. It meant order, hierarchy, and Roman control. Rebellions were basically crushed swiftly. There was the Gaul or Judea. Jerusalem, Judea. There was a lot of people trying to start up rebellions. This was all during the Pax Romana, and it was moderately quiet, moderately peaceful, or the illusion was it was completely peaceful, but it wasn't. Gaul, up in Europe, Upper Europe, those were still having struggles with the Romans. Germanic tribes, Germany, over, all in Europe as well, also. So, many provinces welcomed Roman rule, but many did not. Many of the people inside did not. They accepted it because they enjoyed the benefits of peace, protection, and commerce. Now, that was most likely the elites that liked that. They didn't like the rebellions of the smaller people, of the less fortunate people. Now, Augustus ruled until his death in 14 AD, passing the empire to his stepson, Tiberius. And we're going to go over Tiberius next week as well. Well, it might be 2 weeks from now. I think it's next week. Maybe second podcast next week. But it was a monument. Well, he was declared basically a god by the Senate. They were kissing butt, and they wanted to make him happy. You're a god to us. Yeah. He was buried in the mausoleum. This is, well, okay, sorry. I think I'm mixing these two up. Tiberius was not considered a god. Caesar Augustus was considered a god by the Senate. And he was buried in the mausoleum of Augustus, which is a monument to his lasting legacy. Still stands today, I think. Pretty sure. Okay. I've always wanted to go to Rome. Well, I could say I've been to Rome. I've always wanted to see these other things. But remember, back when I first went to Europe, I didn't like history as much. I didn't like it very much. The next time I go, though, I'm going to have all of this history in my head. I can't wait to learn so much of how much I don't actually know. So let's recap this really fast, and then I'll let you guys go. Okay, so Augustus began as a teenager, heir to the divine republic. He emerged from the chaos with basically an unmatched political skill and military power and a clear vision. So by the time he died, he had ended the civil wars. 100 years of it, done. He rebuilt Roman infrastructures and the institutions. Done. Created an imperial system that would last for centuries. Done. Wow. So he's already done a great deal. Now, the biggest thing, which we'll talk about more on Wednesday, he launched the Pax Romana. Keep getting that wrong. A golden age of peace and prosperity, at least for those who accepted Roman rule. Not all accepted it. He was not a king in name, but in all, he was. He was Augustus. He was the Rome's first emperor. So, now it comes the end. The engagement question. The active question. I want you to put this in the comments below. Email me your thoughts. I want to hear it. Would you have supported Augustus if he lived in Rome in 27 BC? Or would you have defended the old republic? Would you have wanted to be on the Senate? Either way, would you want to have been on the Senate or a regular citizen? The elite. Probably not the poor, but maybe the poor. I want to hear what you have to say. Please, let me know. 27 BC, where would you want to be? You can't be Augustus. Where under him would you want to be? Interesting question. I could tell you where I would want to be. No, I have to actually think about this. I'd say I want to be in the elite, because again, power, money, those type of things. But at the same time, I don't. I don't want to be responsible for certain things. At the same time, I don't want to be poor. But at the same time, you got to think that poor actually have a lot of freedom in this sense, minus the fact of starvation. That's not freedom at all. But in the sense that you are not being held to do certain things at certain times. But I wouldn't want to be poor either. It's a lot harder than I thought it would be. So please give me your responses. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this question. Where would you want to be during Augustus' rule around 27 BC? Thanks so much for joining us, and we will catch you next time. Take care, y'all. Bye. If you have any comments or questions, add them to the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow, actually. Take care. Bye.